Hi, everyone, and welcome to another NGWA Industry Connected video. Today I'm with David Messina, CSP, Director of Health and Safety for Yellow Jacket Drilling Services, LLC, with its corporate office located in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, David. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, good to be here, Mike. Thanks.
You bet. Let's start with your career path that's led you to your current role with Yellow Jacket Drilling. Can you share how your mindset and education prepared you to become the Director of Health and Safety at Yellow Jacket?
Yeah, I can certainly take a stab at it anyway. Out of high school, as a as a young man, I always wanted to be a fireman. I think a lot of little kids do. Went down that career path. Did the structural firefighting, more along ride-along stuff like that. And to be honest with you, that's a mentally taxing job in a big city. A lot of sad stuff, a lot of kids falling in the pool, people getting hurt, and it wasn't really for me. And hanging out with the guys, I had a good rapport with them. They recommend getting into wildland firefighting.
Hmm.
Man, you want to you want to do the cool stuff and fight fires, but not deal with all the sad stuff. Go and fight fires, and do the Forest Service thing. People are less likely to get hurt. You don't have to deal with all the sad variables that inevitably get wrapped into structural firefighting. So I was lucky enough. Town I grew up in had a ranger district there. I knew some of the guys. I was able to get on with the wildland fire crew, and that first season I was able to do a couple details with the hot shot crew because they liked the way I work, and the next fire season I was able to start full time on a hot shot crew, which was
Hmm.
the greatest thing ever for a young man and want to be out there. I love hiking, hunting, and working and making a lot of money at a young age. It was just fantastic. And that
Mhm.
career really tied into a lot of the athletics and stuff I did in high school as far as a teamwork mentality and camaraderie. You're really close, and you got 100% count on each other to not let each other down. If I count on you, Mike, to go and do this, I'm going to turn my back and I'm going to take care of what I have to, and I can't afford to be looking over my shoulder. So they really instilled you got to follow the rules, you got to follow the chain of command, and everybody's got to be on the same page, or it can really get out of hand in a hurry. And that mentality really stuck with me into the drilling industry. I guess to go back just a little bit, the firefighting was more of a seasonal thing. During the winter, if you got snow and stuff, there's not a whole lot of fires to fight. So a lot of the guys will go off and do another job. And I was just reading through the paper back then. You actually went, some of the website stuff, but had the paper and the classifieds, and there was an ad for environmental drilling, and I was like, I kind of thought, well, I like being outside. I love the environment, kind of a hippie dude when it comes to that stuff. And then drilling's like, as a young man already fighting fires, like, well, drilling sounds like kind of on a parallel track there. You're working hard and you're making a lot of money doing cool stuff. And I gave it a go, and I loved it. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Same type of guys doing the same type of hard work and having fun and making friends and counting on each other. So I
Mhm.
did that, and I decided to stick with drilling because it was a more stable career. It was easier on my body, not so much hiking and getting beat up out there in the middle of nowhere. And once I determined that that was where I wanted to stay and it was a career that I'd enjoy, I uh, I had a long overdue goal of getting back to school and knocking out my bachelor's degree, and doing the education part of it is something I've kind of raised with, and I kind of always felt it was an important thing to do. So I got back I was able to do the bachelor's degree while I was out drilling, and I guess it just, as far as getting back to your question, I guess, is both industries really rely on counting on each other to do stuff and looking out for your brother and be your brother's keeper, that whole saying. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. And drilling was very similar in that respect. So I took that mentality. I was lucky enough to become a mentor on a crew, get to train some of the new guys. I tend to be fairly laid back, willing to I can get along with most people. So it was a kind of a good fit. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed meeting the new guys and hanging out. And as as I got a little bit older and I got married and we decided to have a family, I was like, this whole traveling thing ain't as fun as it used to be. You know, years and years of my helpers missing out on opportunities to be there with the kiddos. I wanted to try to move into the office, and I talked to the boss, let him know that I think I'm either going to find a different industry where it's more conducive to me being part of the family, or maybe move into the office. And at that point, we were growing as a company, and he had mentioned, you know, health and safety is a role that we need to have somebody's got to fill that chair. Up to then, it was something the project managers kind of took. You know, they wore two hats, and it was too big of shoes to fill for a project manager. Somebody needed to be full time. So went back to school and got my master's and kind of filled that role at Yellow Jacket Drilling over. Took a couple of years, but knocked it out and filled that role.
Yeah, so you were on the back of a rig, like you said, for a handful of years at Yellow Jacket before, and earning your master's degree in safety, security, and emergency management from Eastern Kentucky in 2018. And curious, how has the education helped you in your day-to-day responsibilities as Director of Health and Safety?
Oh man, immensely, immensely. You know, out in the field, I always thought, you know, the safety guy, like, okay, yeah, I'll put in my earplugs, or I'll do this, I'll do that. It seems like kind of common sense stuff, and the fundamentals of safety really are. You know, there's a lot of places where, hey, if you put your hand there, it's gonna get smashed. You know, and common sense would tell you, let's stay out of harm's way. So a lot of the basics of safety is something that you learn with field experience, but to dig deeper into it, so much of health and safety is built on federal regulations, client expectations, a little bit of knowledge of the chemicals of concern on site, all those different variables. So being on a rig teaches you what can hurt you. Going to school helps you better understand why that failure occurred and how to apply things in a different way so it doesn't fail. So field experience is really good at just helping you understand what is dangerous. The education helps you understand why it's dangerous, and foremost, it helps you understand that is a weak point, and how are we going to re-engineer it or change our policies so that weak point doesn't eventually hurt somebody. So they really tie together nicely, and I think it's imperative that whenever possible you get that field experience combined with the education. And I think personally, I think that's a perfect storm. You see things from both angles, entirely different perspectives, but they absolutely complement each other, and working together, they're much more effective than doing either or on its own.
And regarding safety tools that you have on the back of each Yellow Jacket rig, can you share which safety tools are mandatory on each rig, like a 5-gas monitor or
Well,
tools
as
like
far as
that?
being, yeah, absolutely. As far as being mandatory, it's actually very rudimentary. You know, it's level DPP. So hard hat, gloves, safety glasses, hearing protection, long sleeve shirt. We require high vis, and obviously long pants and steel toe boots. That's mandatory. Then after that, all the additional PPE is very much driven by the site characteristics. You know what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful. So that is where the kickoff meetings with the client and the people that are familiar with the site are so imperative that we knock those out. We ask those questions. We all understand that these are the chemicals of concern. It might be respirable dust, then it's required respiratory protection. It might be a hydrogen sulfide or a flammable gas that's required to be either a 4-gas meter, even a single gas meter, 5-gas meter. It all depends on what we're planning on encountering as we go through the drilling operations. But FR clothing is very common. The multi-gas meters are very common. And some of the newer things that are really, really fantastic and important are the proximity sensors on the mobile equipment. So, you know, the industry as a whole, occasionally you'll hear some sad story of somebody getting run into, backed over, whatever. So now we got proximity sensors on the mobile equipment, where when the equipment's in reverse, it responds to stickers and everybody's hard hats on site. And if you're within 20 feet, the alarm goes off for the driver. So even if you're way off on the side, you're not going to hit anybody. The alarm goes off, and that forces us to get our personnel in the correct spots. And unless you're going to completely ignore it, and it's a very, very loud alarm that goes off for the driver. It's not similar to the backup alarm, which is already there.
Mhm.
The proximity sensor really remedies the issue of us having guys lose sight of their spotter, get in a rush, lack of situational awareness. We can put those stickers even on equipment or valuable wellheads or tooling that might be hard to see. And when the equipment's backing up and visibility is of a concern, they get in the proximity and the alarms go off and they know they immediately stop, figure out what's going on, and have another spotter come over there and help keep them out of the way. And that's a newer thing.
Mhm.
Another thing that's on equipment related is the low tire pressure sensors, and that's on the dashboard, and alarms if one of your tires is getting too hot or tire pressure is getting too low, and that's obviously less on-site and more mobilization as we're driving down the highway. But
Mhm.
those have been essential. We've had it's really hot down here in the Southwest where we work a lot of time during the summer, and blowouts are a concern. So we put them on all the equipment, on the steer tires, on the bigger rigs at minimum, and usually on all the axles. And the guys will get a warning if the tire is getting hot, and they'll give you a good indication of what's going on. It could be wheel bearings, it could be whatever, but we pull over before they come to failure, and those have been a real pleasant surprise of how effective they've been. We pulled over and had a lot of tires switched out before we had any blowouts at all. But when they pull over, like, oh yeah, it's hot and it looks like it's losing air or whatever. So those are some of the things, and then
Mhm.
there's a whole litany of other things that pop up occasionally for sure.
Yeah. And for you, what does a typical day, week, and month look like as you help keep Yellow Jackets drilling crews operating their equipment in a safe manner?
Oh, on an average day, because there are so many variables and so many phone calls and so many clients call and what you hear for that, or unique circumstances. But on an average day, that's just a regular boring day. The night before, I'll get all the site audits from our safety monitors that are out in the field, and they'll take pictures of the whole site and send out a full report into the office. I'll review that, and all the monitors review it, or all the project managers review it on their crews as well. And in the morning, I'll come in, and all the points that we're taking, good and bad, I'll communicate to the crew about what we found. I'll talk to the monitors and say, what do you need to help fix this while you're out there on site? Start the day with that, and then I'll immediately go into drive logs. I'll go the ELDs. It's been a little bit of our electronic logging device. It's drive
Yeah.
logs. I'll go through those every morning, look for any violations that occurred the day before, give the guys a call, like, hey, you never logged out. 9 out of 10 times, it's just the guys mislogging their driving. So I'll call them and ask them to fix all those. If they were in legitimate violation, we'll notate it, and it is what it is. Like, hey, you drove over your 8-hour limit or whatever it might have been that day, and address all that with the guys. And then after that, it's managing the training department, the new hires coming through, making sure all that's in order, filling those holes. And then it's JSA development. The guys will update them out in the field, and they'll send me notes, and I'll retype them up and add them to our binder to keep those up to date. And then a lot of health and safety evaluations or pre-qualification forms clients all ask for. So you got to send all that stuff to the clients, fill out their surveys. How many of these did you have last year? What are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Then you got all the OSHA reporting requirements. You got the DOT reporting requirements. And then if we do have any kind of incident, a large part of it will be a root cause analysis, corrective action plans, implementing those plans, and making sure everybody out there in the field knows what we've done to make sure we don't have a similar mistake in the future.
Mhm.
And report them that, and making sure if we do unfortunately get somebody that hurts their back or anything, then case management is obviously something that I got to work with. So our light duty program and dealing with the occupational health care facility and the insurance company, and making sure we're doing everything we can to keep our safety numbers satisfactory, but most importantly, making sure these guys get back to 100% and they're back out there in the field being productive and beneficial for their families and ourselves and their career,
Mhm.
and getting them back out there as soon as possible, learning from it and adapting what we're doing as a company to make sure we don't do the same mistakes over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And can you share, you mentioned safety monitors who are reporting to you information. Who are those? Are those project managers or is that another person you've identified
Yeah.
within your company?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another role entirely. So we have a regional safety monitor for each office. So we'll have one guy's based out of here in Phoenix and others based out of Rancho Cucamonga with or LA basically for our California office.
Mhm.
Then we got another office in Sandy, Oregon, which is basically Portland. Each one of those offices has a full-time health and safety monitor. And what they do is where I lack. I'm here in the office filling an administrative role anymore. And unfortunately, I do kind of get sucked into the computer and the reporting and all that. And I don't get out in the field as much as I would like to. I
Mm-hmm.
certainly don't get out to the field. We're all over the Western United States anymore, anywhere from Alaska to Texas and anything west of there, we work regularly. I can't get out there and see the crews as much as I'd like to, and not even close. The monitors, we expect them to visit at least 3 crews a week. And each crew they're doing a full safety audit on, do the full report, take all the pictures, note any deficiencies or attaboys, and share that with us. And then an additional role we have full time as a trainer, and his job is to work with me and just make sure that we're doing continuing education for all the drillers that come back in and can have time to improve their education, become better at their job. But
Mm-hmm.
most importantly, right now, what we're focusing on is the new hire training. We want to do a more thorough job of training our guys before we put them out in the field so they're more productive right off the bat. They're more safe right off the bat. They're more comfortable in the role we expect them to fill. We're not just throwing them out there and learn on the fly. None of that stuff. All that integrated together, we feel is moving in the right direction and getting to where we expect to be as a company. And all those monitors and the trainer, they're all very experienced in the drilling industry. And like I said earlier, it's important to me that we have that field experience. So the monitors we have are the guys that, they've been drilling for 20, 30 years, some of them, and they're ready to kind of take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit as far as manual labor, but they have that knowledge that is just the most valuable asset we can get. And you can't get that without being out in the field for decades. So those
Mm-hmm.
guys all have it. They're licensed drillers. It's what they did forever. They know the stuff that'll make the guys roll their eyes in the field. We're like, okay, I know it's safer, but this is the way reality is. It's the way we do it. They know all that stuff. And they can say, I understand this makes you, frustrated or feel like it's less efficient, but we send them to all the OSHA training courses. They train with me for a while. Where I said earlier, we got the integration of the education and the field experience. And with them having the field experience they automatically get that respect from the guys. And it's not the safety guy that just came out of college and it's like, hey, I know you know all the math and you know this, you know the stress points, but that's not drilling. Well, these guys like, listen, buddy, I've been drilling on this same rig for 20 years before, while you were still in elementary school. I know drilling. Let me explain to you why safety has got to incorporate with it. And this is where we're going, and this is where the industry is going. And it really allows us to integrate the two disciplines together very effectively. And I like to think it's making a dramatic difference. I know with our safety numbers, it absolutely has. I know with retention, it has. And I know that we have better eyes and ears out in the field, and we know what's really happening. It's not just what the guys are reporting all the time. It's what we're really seeing with these safety audits, and we're talking to the clients. We're making those relationships to where we're getting real life data from the field, from people that know what they're looking at, what they're talking about, and what we expect. And that all makes it back to me when I'm sitting here in the office working on reports. But I can use that to make our training program better by working with our trainer here in Arizona, and we get that message out there to everybody. And then, during the annual training, we can really hammer those key points, and it's really helping us improve exponentially compared to where I believe we were just a few years ago.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to equipment inspection in our industry as a whole, what do you think gets overlooked the most? And in your mind, what are some quick and easy steps to take to improve equipment inspections?
Well, quick and easy in regards that it's quick and easy to say. As far as actually making it happen, it never works out that way.
Mm.
But in reality, from my experience, and I think most people would agree with it, the biggest deficiency right now is just actually inspecting the equipment, and documenting the inspection, but not just checking the boxes, but taking the half hour and checking the fluids and greasing the grease zerks and going through the motions every morning and legitimately inspecting it. I know for a fact you'll go out there sometimes and the guys, oh, there's no puddle under the rig, so obviously nothing's leaking. I drilled all day yesterday, I ran fine, we're good to go. And they start, and so much of the drilling industry has always been driven by footage, or like a truck driver, like how many miles, I get paid by the mile, a lot of drilling companies get paid by the footage. Well, if you break your rig, nobody's getting paid. And I don't care how fast you drilled yesterday, if you don't drill today, your numbers get cut in half immediately, and then your rig's less and less efficient. Client's upset. Ultimately, the most efficient thing you can do is take that 30 minutes in the morning, inspect each piece of equipment that you need to inspect, and make sure that she's running for you efficiently and effectively and reliably and safely, and do it the right way. And that is where the training really comes into play. The new guys know how to check the oil, how to properly grease the rig. We have our yard manager who, basically turned wrenches for us forever. And it was his job to fix everything we broke. And Lord knows drillers out in the field can break stuff a lot faster than somebody could fix stuff here in the yard when it comes back for, a couple days on the way to the next job site. So he's worked with us, and we have mechanics in each region now, kind of like the safety monitors, that work with us to help develop the new hire training program. And it's a cheat sheet. And like every 10 hours, this is required. And the guys will have it in the field and they'll know, hey, every other day, we got to actually grease these particular grease fittings. We got to inspect these shivs, and we got to do all of this. And the maintenance part of it is such a big deal of being safe. And I think it's often overlooked that good training and good equipment maintenance are the foundations to being safe in the field. Because if your equipment breaks, there's a high likelihood somebody's going to get hurt if something goes flying or falling out of the tower. And if the guys aren't properly trained, there's a good chance they're going to be in the line of fire. They're going to be in the wrong spot. And when something breaks, they're going to get hit with something. So the training and the proper maintenance and the rig inspection, we have really, really pounded into the guys. I know they're way sick of hearing it because it's just like, hey, don't forget this, don't forget that. But it's become a great habit. And the annual inspections we do on the rigs now, it's above and beyond. Well, we'll do the load test on the rig. We'll pull everything on the rig, every component that it's designed. We'll make sure it's pulling as hard as it's supposed to. And we'll do the load cell and we'll report it. But after we pull it as hard as it can pull and make sure everything's right, and it's pulling not too hard or not too light, adjust everything to where it needs to be, then we'll have an engineering firm come in and they'll do non-destructive testing on all the critical welds of the entire rig. They'll go through and check the welds, magnetic particle inspection, all that stuff, and any hairline cracks and stuff that you're not going to catch out in the field because you're not climbing to the top of the tower checking out. They'll climb all over the rig. They'll check every critical weld. They'll document it. If they find any deficiencies, we'll start the process over again. We'll fix it with an engineer and a certified welder. We'll re-pull test it. We'll re-inspect it. And every year we're doing that. We're checking all the shivs, all the shiv pins, all of that. And then the drops, which is depending on who you ask, it's a dropped object prevention scheme or prevention survey. Everything overhead on all of our equipment, we look at, and like it could be as simple as Nordlock washers so that bolt can't back off and fall. Most of the time we gotta, drill a hole in it, put a tie wire, and make sure it's secured to the rig. And that's something we learned from the oil industry as we work more and more with those larger corporations. That's stuff that they do out in the oil platforms. We've been able to incorporate some of the experience they have where, if a bolt falls from 300 feet and hits you, it's potential fatality. Our rigs are much smaller, but there's a lot of things up there that could fall off. So that annual inspection, we do a full dropped object survey on the rig, and everything above head, we make sure it's got secondary retention and it's got a plan in place. If this were to break, what's keeping it from falling and hitting the driller? Right now, nothing. So we're going to put a lanyard on it. We're going to tie it off to this pad eye over here. It's all engineered, certified. Just all that stuff ties in with the equipment inspection and all those things. If you're and that's where the education helps. You're looking up and you're thinking about things in a different perspective. you can see like, well, I understand this is all engineered, but over time and wear and tear, what happens if that weld breaks? It's like, well, I guess the whole winch is going to fall, you know? So what are we doing to make sure it doesn't? And it'll just be a cable lanyard tied off to a pad eye. And if everything goes kaput, it'll be hanging up there by, you know, 3/4 inch wire rope or whatever we use for a lanyard. And it keeps the guys on the ground safe and they can work comfortably knowing that there are redundant safety steps that have been taken and put into place to make sure that you're not going to be in harm's way. Even if things do break, we have a plan for that. You're going to be in the right spot, and we're engineering it that it can't fall, you know. And there's all those different factors. You put them all together, and you end up having a safer workplace, keep your guys out of harm's way.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And have you noticed or heard of about a type of injury or accident that is on the rise on job sites?
On the rise, you know, there's been a lot of driving and vehicle accidents. You know, it's not so much tied into drilling as it is to part of drilling is getting to the site, driving here and there, backing incidents, all that. So there has been an unfortunate increase in people rear-ending equipment or vice versa, and all those fender benders. And for us, the dash cams have been a real lifesaver with that. I know the insurance company, when we mentioned the idea, they were excited about it. Like, no, that's a fantastic idea. It's a trend that the insurance companies were noticing. It came up at one of our insurance meetings where we have an annual review with the insurance companies. So we decided we're going to add some cameras, and it made sense. It can tell when your driver's fatigued. It can do all those little things that even help out more. We work a lot of hours, and guys might be sleepy. Guys might be, I don't know, might be distracted driving. Who knows what may be. But we've had several instances already where the cameras have saved us from being at fault in an accident, where when the video, the dash cam's like, hey, this person obviously changed lanes into us. I know they're saying that, you know, we rear-ended them, but watch the video, and it's been just, it's so valuable to have when you can pop in the video, you show the officer, it's like, dude, you changed lanes right into these people. Of course they rear-ended you, and they get cited. It's quick, it's clean, and it really has saved us, because before then, it's general rule of thumb, whoever's in the back, whoever rear-ended a car in front of them 9 out of 10 times is always at fault, you know. And now it's like, I don't know if people are doing it on purpose or not. You know, you hear those stories where they're doing the brake check or they're working with a buddy and they're trying to get an insurance payoff. Well, a simple, affordable camera has really made a big difference. And I also, I don't want to throw our guys under the bus, but I think when you got Big Brother watching, maybe you follow the rules a little better than when you do it if you don't think anybody's watching. You know, it helps, a little reminder, like, oh, all right, man, I better pull over. I'm getting a little sleepy, you know, and take your break and do things the right way. It just helps keep everybody honest and look out for each other. But I do think the fender benders and the vehicle accidents have definitely been trending on the upside, at least from my perspective.
What have you learned over the years that you found to help keep tailgate talks fresh, timely, and engaging?
Oh, you know, for me, as always, especially as a safety guy now, you know, you go out there and you're expected to lead the talk and you do all this, and I'm happy to do that. But what I like to do is I try to focus on listening as opposed to talking. So I usually go to the younger guy in the group and I go, what do you think? You know, and it's so important that different people speak, because you're not hearing the same spiel over and over every day. Okay, guys, it's going to be hot today. It's like, yeah, it's July in Phoenix. We had a pretty good grasp on that. We knew it was going to be warm. What happened yesterday? And what was something you noticed yesterday? Like, did we have somebody come walking through our site? What is more relevant and day to day, instead of just reading the same JSA? Yes, we're drilling. Yes, we're tailing in pipe. I get it. It's a back injury concern. Let's mention that, but let's keep it. What's new? Well, yesterday, you know, we saw some bees out here, which are concerns. Anybody here allergic to bees? If you're comfortable sharing that, do we have an antihistamine? All those little things. But first and foremost, let other people speak up. Even the guys like, no, I don't have anything to add. Yeah, you do. Think of 2 things yesterday where somebody stumbled or you rolled your ankle. I don't care how minor you think it is. It's important. We need to talk about it. And when you allow other people to talk and you allow the younger people to say stuff and you listen to them and you make changes and they say, yeah, yesterday I was walking across the site and I stumbled a few times carrying the sampler. Well, let's get the Bobcat over here. Let's get the bucket over here. Let's bring in some dirt and smooth this out. There's a lot of, baseball sized rocks out here that people are stumbling over, and make those changes and let guys know that what they say in those meetings is understood, it's appreciated, and we'll act upon it immediately to make sure they're safer and the rest of us are safer. And once you kind of get the communication going, guys are really quick to throw out and like, oh, you know what? I did see this too, or so and so did that. And maybe we should do this because that seemed like a bad idea. And just get that conversation going on. Safety absolutely lives in communication, and it's a whole stop work authority. And if you see something, you can stop work, but say something. Say something, and don't think like, well, that's the driller. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Not all the time, man. We all make mistakes, and drillers get hurt too, and drillers get in a rush sometimes and stop being situationally aware and make mistakes. And it could be the new guy that saves the driller from smashing his finger or doing something silly and getting somebody hurt. So I just encourage open communication and listening to each other, and then having some feedback. Have a little bit of a conversation. It's not just a diatribe of one guy doing his safety essay and okay, cool, thanks, what did I sign? What do you think about what he said? And does that make sense to you? Or do you have anything to add? And that really helps. Let's get that conversation going.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to incorporating a safety culture at a drilling company, what have you found to be successful first steps in doing so?
You know what? I think a large variable that we've done a good job at implementing is having the experienced field workers move into the safety program. They, like I said earlier, they got that respect already, and the guys know who they are, they know drilling. That opens the door to the guys actually caring what you're saying instead of, okay, cool, that's great. I'm sure you read that in the OSHA book. That's awesome, but this is what we're gonna do. And there would be some disrespect out there when you're talking to some others. The safety guy, you got that stigma sometimes. Well, when the safety guy used to be your driller and he taught you how to drill, they got a lot when they're carrying a bigger bat. What they say absolutely matters, and they respect it. And they know, like, hey, Tony, Mario, and Rick, our safety monitors, most of our guys have drilled with them out in the field, sometime in the past, and they know, and they could share that message with the new guys, like, hey, that was one of our best drillers. What he's saying matters, and he was better. He taught me how to do this. So the safety guy isn't just a safety guy anymore. He's a drilling guy that understands and knows how to do things safely, and that is so important, so important. And then the training. I think the drilling industry is underappreciated with how complex the job is. It's not just a whole bunch of guys that drink too much beer and work too hard and might be missing two fingers. It's like these guys are commercial drivers, so they're professional drivers. They're rigging trained, so they're rigger qualified. They're certified crane operators in many instances. They got a driller's license in most of the states that we're drilling in. Either that or somebody on site's got to have the driller's license. They're laborers. They work harder than most industries. They're certified welders. They're pipe fitters because they're putting pipe down the hole, and it's got to be beveled. It's got to be to spec, and they might be welding stainless steel with special wire. These guys are a jack of all trades, and not only are they a jack of all trades, but in most instances, they're a professional in all the trades, and they have a certification. And we need to train them like they are a professional welder, because there are components of their job where they're required to be a professional welder. So it's not just a driller. These guys have a whole wallet full of certifications where they can go in so many other industries and just focus on one aspect of what they do on a daily basis operating a drill rig. These guys are phenomenally talented. They're educated. They got the tremendous amount of work history. We need to do a better job of supporting them in that manner. And they're not just a grunt out there digging trenches. That's part of their job, but then they also got all these certifications. They're professionals from so many different angles. And it's really impressive what these guys, what their knowledge is, what their ability is out in the field. It's really, I don't want to say it's unparalleled, but there aren't many industries out there where you're going to have somebody this well-rounded and this talented in so many different aspects on a daily basis. So these guys are valuable. We need to keep them. We need to keep them happy. It's not a question of retention's always been an issue in the drone industry. The guys make fantastic money. It's a very good paying industry. We need to support them better to where they know they're appreciated, and we can help them improve, and they have an extra rung on the ladder where they can continue to climb and get better and be the manager. And when we buy the new rig, they're going to be the mentor, and they're going to teach this kid how to drill. And we really encourage them to go out and get more drilling licenses. It's like, hey, we're not drilling in Missouri right now, but why don't you go ahead and get that license? We'll pay for you to go out there, get your license. Those guys appreciate the growth, to go out there. You feel better about yourself, the continuing education, the company's paying for me to get my welding certificate, all that stuff. It matters to the guys, and it helps them know, like, hey, they're investing in me because they know I'm worth something. They appreciate me. I do stuff safely. We acknowledge it. Our safety monitors talk to them in the field. When they get a safety audit, usually they'll follow up with a phone call like, hey, man, the boss read your audit last night. I think he's probably going to give you a call later on. And they'll get that phone call and say, hey, Mike, great job. The site looked great. Your helpers are happy. We can't tell you how much we appreciate what you're doing in the field and how valuable you are. And all that just helps create that family and then that inclusion where everybody's happy. We're working together. We're looking out for each other and just getting stuff done, making money and being happy and healthy and safe.
Yeah, well said. And lastly, during your time as a drill rig operator, you were a mentor / trainer for new hires. How do you envision the industry going about training the next generation while keeping safety at the forefront of it?
Oh man, that's a big obstacle we got to figure out right now, because we get a lot of young people coming into the industry that have never driven a manual, have never changed the oil, or a manual transmission, I should say, never changed the oil in cars. A lot of that stuff, the mechanical parts of our job are getting rare and rare. People have cars, they go to the dealership, they let them do the maintenance, they don't change their own tires, all that stuff. And whether it's fair or not, it does seem like a lot of these kids are better on a computer than they are, turning wrenches. So it's harder to find guys that fit that role. So we focus more on, do you know how to use a pipe wrench? Like, we start at the basics, righty tighty, lefty loosey. A lot of guys, it sounds silly if you grew up helping dad working on the car, but we really start at the foundation, and where we're working so hard, and where I think we are definitely going, and I think the industry as a whole is, we're trying to tie in more into a college level courses. There's the East Valley Institute of Technology is here in Arizona, kind of an affiliate of Arizona State University, and they teach welding and mechanics. And well, they're willing to put together with our assistance some drilling courses where we can have the drilling tie in with their welding classes. We could tie into like a mud school for people that are drilling mud rotary, and Bayroyd's giving us some curriculum. There's a lot of that where we've got it approved, a nationally accredited apprenticeship system, or apprenticeship program, I should say. We haven't been able to implement it yet because we need to get this training center set up entirely. Our trainer, he is from the drilling industry, but he left the drilling industry to be a school teacher. And I was able to call him back and say, hey, how would you like to be a school teacher for the drilling industry? So he's that guy. He's got his master's in education. He understands drilling. We're working on making the apprenticeship program to where we can take somebody that doesn't know anything about tightening a bolt, changing the oil, greasing a rig, any of that, and we can send them to school, and we'll have modules set up, and it'll be a 3-year apprenticeship program where we could take the kid, if he's interested and he thinks it's something that is a good fit for him. By the time he gets done, he'll be ready to jump out there, be a lead hand on the rig once he's done. And we'll have a 2-year plan after that to where he'll be a rig operator if he progresses, as we all hope. But I think we're going to have to make it more of like a college program. Let's train these guys from the foundation up. And we'll get these kids that have never done any of this kind of work in the past, and we'll train them up to where not only can they do it, but they're going to be better than the guys that have been out here for 5 years and never got trained correctly in the first place. I think that's where it's going. I know that's where we're going, and I have no doubt that that's moving in the right direction, and we can get there. And I think it's going to be necessary moving forward. I think in 10 years, it's going to be more necessary than it is today, no doubt.
We'll certainly be checking back in with you on seeing how the program is moving along in the coming years,
Yeah.
David. So, yeah, thanks again for your time today and for sharing so much great information. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. It was good to talk to you.
You bet.